All right. Got our participants, quite a few here. I think we can begin.
Okay, all right. So welcome everybody. As the chair of the Department of Child and Adolescent Development here in the College of Education, we're delighted to have the opportunity to host Dr. Let me check my notes. See, I practiced too. Mkrtchyan, presentation of the research he has conducted as a Fulbright Scholar. So it's been a long time coming. This is one of those much anticipated events that got postponed and then reformatted due to current events. So we find ourselves, instead of spending a couple days together on campus here in Zoom, we're using the Zoom webinar feature. So I just wanted to point out that as you join our webinar, you're going to be muted and your cameras will be off. So that might be a little different from what you're used to in Zoom these days. However, we would welcome your participation. And so we would ask you to do that via the chat box. Any comments, anything that you'd like to share, any questions that you might have, go ahead and pop those into the chat box. Before we get started, I just wanted to thank everybody who made this happen and acknowledge all of those of you in the audience today. I know we have people still joining us, but we anticipate students and faculty from across the university, as well as students, representatives from our SJSU Armenian Student Association. We have members of our local community, as well as individuals potentially zooming in from Armenia. Importantly, we also have our university president, Dr. Papazian, and our college dean, Dr. Vladimir, both with us today. Dr. Papazian, do you want to say a few words before we get started?
Thank you, Emily. And really, let me just say welcome to all of you. First, to Dr. Mkrtchyan, Armen. It's wonderful to see you this way. I'm sorry that we're not able to welcome you in person, but I know it's been a fruitful and productive time for you here on your Fulbright. And I know that the work and the research you're doing on Armenian teenagers will be something that will be very interesting for all of us to learn more about. So welcome. I hope you've had a chance, even in shelter in place, to enjoy some of the flavor of our wonderful San Jose State community and our South Bay location. So thank you. I also am just delighted to support, of course, our Lurie College of Education, the terrific program that we have in early childhood development, child and adolescent development. Our phenomenal dean, Heather Latimer, great chair, and Emily Slusher, and of course, our associated students, faculty advisor, John Chabakhturian. We were so delighted to bring back the Armenian students group a couple of years ago, and I know to all of you students out there, you will learn something about the challenges facing Armenian teenagers in Armenia, and it'll be interesting to see how some of that actually might map to some of the experiences you have living in multiple cultures. I know it's an experience I had growing up as well. So why don't I stop here and turn it over to the experts and just say I'm just looking forward to the time together.
Thank you so much. Dr. Latimer, anything to chime in before we get started?
Just another big thank you to both you and John for putting this together, as well as to Dr. Mkrtchyan for joining us, even though it's not under the ideal circumstances. We'd love to have you on campus, but really grateful to have the opportunity to engage in these larger international conversations. I think my experiences working in international contexts, you learn a tremendous amount about the exchange of ideas of the other country that you're connected with, but you also learn a tremendous amount about yourself and your own country, and you're caused to ask questions and think differently in ways that help us to grow and to flourish within our own context. So really appreciate you all taking the time to engage in the larger conversation, especially in the middle of exam week. So hopefully it's a little bit of a respite from shelter in place and a little bit of a respite from the pressures of exams and grading, but really want to say thank you most of all to Emily and to John for making it happen.
Thank you. All right, so I will hand it over to Dr. Chabakhturian for introduction. I'll go ahead and share my screen, or move off of my screen, Dr. Armen, and then you can go ahead and put yours up.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone who has signed in with us today. ուզում եմ բարև բոլորիդ, մանավանդ մեր հայ ժողովրդին. As noted, the San Jose State University, the College of Education, Child and Adolescent Development Department, as well as the Armenian Students Association are very happy and to welcome and host Dr. Armen Mkrtchyan virtually. Dr. Mkrtchyan is currently serving as a distinguished Fulbright Scholar, which has brought him to the US at the Oregon State University's H. Ford Center of Healthy Children and Families. Dr. Mkrtchyan is faculty member at Yerevan State Medical University in the Department of Hygiene and Ecology, where he teaches courses in human development and nutrition. Prior to his facultyship at the Yerevan State University, Dr. Mkrtchyan earned his medical degree and is a family physician. He went on to earn his PhD in medicine, where he studies school readiness and health conditions among young children and the importance of the school environment. In addition to early childhood, Dr. Mkrtchyan has also done critical research on the social and emotional behavior and mental well-being of adolescents. He has worked on research critical in developing assessments of adolescent health, and projects of which has been supported by the World Health Organization. For those who are unfamiliar or not completely familiar with Armenia, Armenia is an independent country, small in land, but large in spirit, the centuries-old civilization in the Caucasus region where East meets West. Armenia has a population of about 3 million people, but is also supported by those who call Armenia homeland by a diasporan community spread all over the world. Dr. Mkrtchyan's work plays an important part in understanding how to assess well-being in children and youth and the role of schools play in their physical, social, and emotional health. We're very happy to have you, Dr. Mkrtchyan, and please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for this opportunity to introduce some aspects of the research that we have done during last 10 years in Armenia. I'm really happy and proud to be your guest, and thanks to Dr. Latimer and Dr. Papazian and everybody who have been working on this topic since, I don't know, February. Yeah, Emily, am I right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we started the negotiations, like, I don't know, since February somehow. Yeah, and my direct project as a Fulbright Scholar here is school readiness measuring and assessment complex that should be implemented later in Armenia, hopefully. But as John mentioned, I have been involved in adolescent health investigations, and we'll talk about this part of my research interest of this field. Okay, so if it's okay, we can start. Yeah? Nice. So Armenian teenagers at home and at school, who there? By the way, this picture is on this picture is a group of Armenian teenagers from California. We have many programs that offer the visits of Armenian teenagers to Armenia. The investigations that I want to speak about, there are 4 investigations, actually. First is health behavior in school-age children of Armenia. This is the last one that we completed before I came to US. It's a national study. And 3 that were done by Yerevan State Medical University, hygienic characteristics of students' socio-emotional problems and health status in high schools, evaluation of health status of students studying at universities of Armenia, and main problems of health of students and ways of their solution. Yeah, according to 2014 national census, the population of Republic of Armenia is about like 2.8 million inhabitants, and about 40% out of this number are adolescents, 10, 19-year-old adolescents. I think and unfortunately, from many sides, they are the most unprotected and vulnerable group. They are already out of their like family's attention somehow. They try to be like alone, but still they are really very vulnerable. That's why we decided to work with adolescents to figure out the problems that they have and to see what we can do to support them, to support like ministries who work with them and all institutions who are involved in this period of life. Okay, so I'll go shortly through educational system of Armenia, some demographics, the gender issues, which are very sensitive now to Armenians, and some school environment, mental health, sleep, risk behavior, sexual behavior, and eating behavior. I'll not be very academic and scientific in my presentation. Just I want to touch all aspects that we are interested in to see what we are doing, what we have done, and what we are doing in this field. Okay, so modern educational system of Armenia. What we have? We have nursery, kindergarten, actually what is preschool in the USA, yeah? Kindergarten. And then in some situations, we have preschools that you call the kindergarten. They are based in schools and they are supported in case that we have no kindergartens in this area or somehow. Then we go to K-12 and then like university. Actually, we turned to K-12 in 2006. And last year, we had the first graduates from schools who completed real K-12. Not 10 years, not 11 years, but just 12 years of school education. And this is something new for Armenia, and it was really very hard decision to turn to K-12 because no children, no schools, no society were not ready for this K-12, for high schools and somehow. But anyway, this is what we have now. Okay, so just one interesting point about Armenian schools. Chess is compulsory subject in Armenian schools. It's a compulsory course in elementary school, and it's compulsory from 2011. Armenian authorities say that teaching chess in school is about building character, not just breeding chess champions. And it's really very interesting. We spent about like $2 million on this project for training of teachers, all this equipment and all this stuff. Okay, and schools in Armenia. This is Armenian reality. We have really like wonderful and amazing schools. As you can see, first is IPE school. We have really very famous international school in Dilijan Forest, but also we have unfortunately this kind of that you see on your right side, this kind of schools. And the last photo that I put, it just like social distancing during this lockdown in Armenian schools in villages. Actually, these school children is not one class, it's just secondary school children. They have just one kid in each class, like from fifth class, 6, 7, and 8, as I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we have this kind of like small schools in Armenia, just for like 10, 12 children. Okay, so now I'll go to like our like investigations. Families. 88% of surveyed 10, 15-year-olds and 86% of 17-year-olds answered that they live with two parents. It's really a very sensitive topic in Armenia, family. And the reasons for not living with two parents included divorce of parents, death of one parent, and work or residence of one parent in another city or country. Unfortunately, because of high rate of unemployment in Armenia, like many like fathers leave their families for just to find a job somewhere in Russia, in Ukraine, or in Europe and somehow. And as you can see, only 31% of girls said that their parents are divorced. I mean, so mostly they're separated because of unemployment and somehow just father works in another city and somehow. Okay, family relations. Percentage of students who were found to have easy contact with their moms. As you can see, percentages are quite high, and for 11-year-old and for, I don't know, and for 17-year-old students. Sorry, I have to go. Okay, and what about fathers? I don't know why, but only 51% of girls, 70-year-old girls, are in easy contact with their dads. And this is, I think, partly because we are really very conservative in many areas, and the relationships between daughters and dads are quite are not smooth anyway. Okay, so some family activities, what they do together with their families, I don't know. Meals, they have at least one joint meal every day, like family meal, which is good, I think. And watching TV somehow, but when you go for like family walking and somehow, no way. Even for 11-year-old kids, they go to street to play to parks alone, or very often with their moms, but not with dads. And we try to think that how these type of things can influence on their like relations and like father trust and why fathers think that they are only to earn money and buy some food for their kids. Okay, so gender issues, which are really very, very sensitive to us. We had couple of, we had about 6 or 7 questions in our questionnaires about gender. I just put here just 2 of them. More encouragement in a family should be given to sons and daughters to enter the university or college or somehow to continue their education after school. And you can see that about half of boys strongly agreed with this statement. And 65% of girls strongly disagreed with the same statement. Yeah, now our teenagers girls start to fight for their rights, for their educational rights, for their like professional futures now. And another question, girls should be more concentrated, like concerned with becoming good wives and moms than desiring a professional or business career. It's really sad and horrible that more than about 65% of boys agreed with this statement. And this is another part that we have to work in. We need to do a lot of things in schools, in our families, like on like state level or somehow national level. Okay, and school environment. Do you like your school? Do you remember your school years? Did you like the school? Honestly, I didn't like my school. It's not because of walls of my friends. It's because of teaching methodology, because of my teachers, and these like mandatory things and obligations and all these things. And you can see that only 37% of 17-year-old boys mentioned that they like their schools. A couple of years ago, we had higher percentage. We have higher rates. Like when we first did this survey in 2003 as a pilot program, about more than 70% of 15-year-old school children mentioned that they like their schools. What we have now, like only 37, and less than half of girls. Why they don't like their schools? That's a question that we have to find an answer. And another problem, can you see, do you trust your teachers? And 70-year-old boys answered like positive. The answer was positive only in, was I'm not mistaken, less than 35%. That's why they don't like their schools. That's why they don't want to go to school. That's why they don't want to spend time in their schools. But still, they are really very supportive toward each other, toward their classmates. And like more than half of children say that classmates were kind and supportive. I'm not sure that 50% is a high percentage, but still it's give us hope that everything is not so dark and, I don't know, gray. Okay, I want to mention some results of our investigation in mental health, in anxiety, in depression, and so on. So you can see that unfortunately we hadn't low level of situational anxiety within the group of 15 and 17-year-old high school children in Yerevan. We had no. How? And you can see that we have significantly high, I don't know, level of situational anxiety in case that they have, that we registered high levels of hostility. Another thing that we try to figure out is personal anxiety, like such kind of like character of these students, and the level of personal anxiety in adolescents increased parallel to increase in level of self-aggression or guilt. You can see that in case of low and average levels of self-aggression, just 12% registered like personal anxiety, and in case of high level of self-aggression, we have more than 35% of these students. And most of them were girls. Among adolescents, exhibiting above average level of self-aggression, high level of personal anxiety is found 5-fold more commonly in girls. And this is also such kind of like behavioral and traditional and some. And if in case that we registered like high levels of aggression, we found that these school children assess their own health lower. And we try to find some correlations and connections with other predictors, I don't know, some sleep hours, homework, and like family issues, and somehow I go through them. I don't know, so maybe I'll answer to some of these questions. Okay, in case of boys, we met like direct aggression. They just, as you can see, like, I don't know, 41% of 15, 17-year-old boys had fights with strangers. Many of them, they had fights and with their classmates. And one of the reasons that it's something new in Armenia, that they move from one school, from secondary school, to new school, to new environment where they meet new teenagers from other schools, and even like indirect like measurements, such kind of like police calls and first aid, like 911 calls. We have increased numbers from high schools for last like 5 years. And for girls, we have significant high rates of indirect aggression. They never directly say that they hate you, or they never will fight. Just 3% of 15-year-old girls mentioned that they had a fight during last like 6 months. But we have quite high rate of indirect aggression. This is also, so you are a girl, you have to hide your emotions, you have to be quiet. Okay, I'll smile to you, I'll be quiet, but it doesn't mean that I love you. Okay, so life satisfaction. We use really very like popular in Armenia country like ladder scale, and what we have, only about like 85, 87% of 70-year-old school children mentioned that they are satisfied. I mean, so they were graded like more than 6 by this ladder scale. And so, okay, so now let's go to depression and even like, I don't know, suicide thoughts. Among you can see that about 6% of school children, 13, 15, 17-year-olds, reported having thoughts of suicide within 12 months presenting the survey. It's quite high percentage, I think, especially in Armenia, where we have very low rate of suicide attempts. Among them, girls and Yerevan inhabitants reported significantly higher prevalence of depression signs and suicide thoughts. And you can see that among like 17-year-old, especially like Yerevan and other cities inhabitants, more than 40% reported depression signs. And we have significant increase of these depression signs through life. And we have significant increase of these signs when like we compare with like previous surveys. Like in 2014, we had only 35 up to 35% reported like depression symptoms, and now we have 41. Okay, and sleep. We try to check how much they sleep. Do they reach the recommendations by WHO and Armenian Ministry of Health for like 8 hours of sleep for school children, secondary and high school children? And you can see that boys sleep longer than girls by 9 minutes per night. I don't know why. We couldn't find any like predictors for that, any correlations, but still. And you can see that 12th grade students, they have a lack of about like more than 1 hour of night sleep. And when we try to put together academic performance and night sleep time, we see that excellent performance recorded. In case that we have less than 8 hours of night sleep, only 18%. And in case of sufficient sleep, we have 28-29%. We speak about the 12th grade students. And now we try to put together homework and sleep time. And you can see that if kids spend more than 4 hours averagely on homework, they sleep less. There is really very strong correlation between homework time and sleep time. So, and recommendation is up to 3.5 hours on homeworks for high school children. It's quite strange because mostly we have about 7-8 hours, 7-8 classes every day. It means that these high school children spend at least 7 hours in school, and then they spend another 4.5 hours on their homework. So their workday is longer than their parents' work day. And why we think that, I mean, they are able to carry these like heavy responsibilities on their developing shoulders. Is it okay to have 4.5 hours of homework? Plus, it's only school homework, but many Armenian school children who are preparing for the university, they have personal, private tutorial lessons. And they spend even more time on their like homework or somehow. It's, I don't know. And we have significant changes in vision, like problems with vision during last 2 years of school education and during first 2 years of university education. Within these 4 years, we increase the vision impairment rates by more than 15%. Great. Okay, headaches as one of the most important psychosomatic measuring parameters. In case of insufficient sleep, we have more reported cases of headaches. Among boys who get sufficient sleep, headaches were found in those whose families consisted of 4 or less members. It was really very interesting thing that we figured out. So, and we tried to, we worked on this with our Department of Psychology a lot to try to find a ways to figure out why. And we think just that's because maybe some significant relation to family size, hence large families have more positive bonds created between adolescents, created between boys in this family. And maybe that's why in families with larger size families, we have less cases of headaches, registered headaches and reported headaches. And 12th grades who sleep less than 8 hours reported fatigue development more than 4.5 times more frequently than students getting sufficient sleep. And it's really very interesting. Among students who do not feel fatigue, among students who sleep less than 8 hours, the students who don't feel fatigue sleep 36 minutes longer. Even in this case, okay, both groups had like insufficient night sleep, like less than 8 hours. But if the students mentioned like this fatigue, they slept less than the others who didn't mention this fatigue during the day. Okay, I'll go to risk behavior. We speak about like shortly about like risk behavior. You can see that 5% of 70-year-old boys reported cigarette smoking within the last 30 days. And about 2% of these boys reported that they are regular smokers with more than 10 cigarettes per day. I'm afraid that our results about girls cigarette smoking not very reliable, because most of Armenian girls try to hide their risk behavior. They just keep quiet. They never reported their like smoking or like alcohol use or somehow. Okay, and hookah is a kind of a new trend in Armenia now, and among 70-year-olds was used by 90% of boys and 12% of girls. Okay, so, and you can see that about 7% of university freshmen, first grade students who are still adolescents, who are like 17, 18 years old, reported at least one episode of cigarette smoking within the last 30 days. When we asked about like generally even one case of cigarette smoking, we have about 60% positive answers. Like more than 60% of our school children at least once tried cigarettes. And sexual behavior. What we have in this field, it was found that 27% of boys and 1% of girls 15 years of age reported already having engaged in sexual intercourse. Most of respondents reporting having their first sexual experience at the age of 15. And the second line, you can see in the 17-year-old age group, 43% of males within Yerevan and 1.2% of females reported having sexual intercourse. And we have really some thoughts about these percentages. We think that for boys, it can be less than 43%, and for like girls, for females, it could be more than 1.2%. It just self-reported like results. But I think, yeah, and so boys try to show that they are already like machos and they are well experienced, and the girls try to hide. This is also because of traditions and behavior and like, okay, and unfortunately, our teenagers, our adolescents are not well trained and educated in case of like safety and sexually transmitted infections and HIV transmission and all these things. And you can see that only 45% of boys like used condoms. Only 45%. Okay, and from one side, about 3/4 of 70-year-olds reported that they learned about HIV and STI at school. But from another side, like 50% of 70-year-old didn't know the answer to questions about protection from HIV and sexually transmitted infections. They learned, they informed that they don't know how to protect them. So unfortunately, and a couple of days ago, we had really very nice discussion in our parliament about sexual education in schools. It's recommended to revise our approach to this sexual education in schools, to create like special courses that should be taught by specialists, not just I don't know, the director of school or the like leader teacher somehow, but by specialists who are like professional in this field, like in I don't know, maybe school psychologist, or maybe a teacher of science, teacher of biology. Unfortunately, now in Armenian schools, this is included in informal education part, extracurricular education, and they had couple of discussions, couple of talks during all their like school life, as well as like a healthy lifestyle, healthy nutrition somehow. And the results that we have unprotected sexual, I don't know, intercourses, and adolescent pregnancies, and the problems of the upcoming like problems after that. Okay, and eating behavior, what we have, you can see that this is like breakfast consumption graph. You can see that less than 50% of our 17-year-olds have regular breakfast. Regular breakfast, we mean at least like 4 weekdays. According to another survey, among university students, only 30% of boys, like male, and 26% of female have a regular breakfast. First year slightly higher, final year students even less. And unhealthy snacks are quite popular in Armenia also. You can see that, I don't know, more than 60% of especially girls, they have sweets on daily. They have daily, and chips like 25% daily. And we have significant increase of consumption of chips, unhealthy like sweets, and sugary beverages, and all these like unhealthy snacks. Unfortunately, in most of Armenian schools, we have no school like cafeterias and stuff like that. And they just go outside, buy whatever they can find in street. Okay, so actually, I think I'll stop here to give the opportunity to participants for more like questions. Yeah. And thank you for your time. Okay, now I'm open for questions if you are.
All right, Dr. Mkrtchyan. We have a question from Dr. Ellen Middow. She's a faculty in our child and adolescent development. She says, and she wrote in, what is the current approach to sexual education in Armenia? Are contraceptives discussed? Is consent for sex discussed? Or is it mainly focused on just abstinence, not to have sex?
No, previously, it was just, as you said, like it was abstinence, like I'm saying. Now we are trying to include in schools like sexual education also, and preventive measures, and like safe sexual because I mean, so according to another survey, 70% of adolescents, for them, like the main source of education is internet and their friends. So to protect them, and unfortunately not all parents are ready to talk with their kids about these like sensitive topics and issues. That's why schools should be more to take more responsibilities in this. And yeah, we are planning to talk about pregnancy, about like safe sex, about like, I don't know, all these things.
Okay, we have another question from our faculty in language and writing, Ala Petrosyan. She says, thank you, Dr. Mkrtchyan. Do we have the number of teenage abortion rates in Armenia?
It get, as I'm not mistaken, it's less than 0.1% from all abortions. During, according to last reports of like Ministry of Health.
Another question from Dr. Suda Koul from our Child and Adolescent Development Department. You mentioned that suicide ideation is high among girls. Is that also true for the suicide rates?
No. No. Actually, like suicide rates, like we have, as I'm not mistaken, more than 3 times higher among like males than females.
We have another question from Dr. Robert Marks, our faculty in Child and Adolescent Development. To what extent are after-school activities and supports, which we do have a lot of in the United States, where different types of clubs, sporting, and so forth. Yeah. How common are those in Armenia?
Actually, in Yerevan and in other cities, situation is better. They have chance. They have a lot of like clubs. It can be an art clubs and dance clubs, and soccer is quite popular in Armenia. And wrestling is quite popular in Armenia. They have chance at about like 30% of Armenian, more than half in the age group 11, 13, and 15 are involved in this kind of like after school activities. In 17-year-old group, this drop significantly, like to 30%. Girls mostly in music and dance clubs, boys mostly in like sport clubs. In rural areas, in villages, situation is like horrible. They have no any chance to be involved. I see here like are all levels of school and education publicly funded? Is early care? Yes, we have publicly funded preschool education. School education is we have public schools, and we have some scholarships, state scholarships for higher education. But we have also private schools and preschool, like preschools also. Just in one of the schools that I shown like previously, tuition fee is 3 times higher than in my university, like medical university. And it's quite expensive. It's about $6,000 per year. But we have the public school education. It's free for everybody, and we have also like public nurseries and preschools and kindergartens. Yeah.
That was my question, Armen. So starting in infancy, then early care and education is funded.
Yeah, and we have really very nice new law just proved by our parliament just a couple of weeks ago about preschool education. And finally, thanks God, we included this preschool education as a part of lifelong education. And the main outcome of this education, one of the main outcomes of preschool education should be school readiness. Not just spend time Yeah, and it's quite new law that it was proved by our parliament.
Thank you.
Dr. Mkrtchyan, sorry, we have another question.
Yeah.
Don't have a name onto it, but thank you for the informative presentation. Sleep deprivation is a big issue for teens here in the United States as well. Out of curiosity, what times do middle and high school start in Armenia? In California, we're still working on issues on having a later start for those grades, and we wanted to see what the perspective was in Armenia.
Yeah, all schools in Armenia start at 8:30 a.m. But unfortunately, many schools, especially in Yerevan, have not enough space and they work in 2 shifts. Like you have chance, and mostly either like included schools like elementary, secondary, and high schools in one building. Mostly elementary and high schools are the first shift, like morning shift, and secondary school is afternoon shift. And it's really complicated because we have to decrease the break times. We have no appropriate enough space for physical activity hours, classes. And like in most of in many Yerevan schools, we have, for example, 10 first grades, 10 classes, and more than 35 kids in each class. Can you imagine the load on this teacher who works with like 34, 35, 40 kids?
It's definitely a struggle.
Yeah.
We have another question from Dr. Oksana Marashi, faculty in our teacher education program. She says, thank you for the very thoughtful, provoking presentation. I found the sleep and mental health findings to be intriguing and wondered if you surveyed, you have asked any questions regarding screen time, analysis related to screen time use and sleep with mental health and other interesting outcomes.
We have some figures and numbers, and we found some correlation between screen times during work days, more than 2 hours, and insufficient sleep time. But we have no the detailed results about the screen time. Is it educational screen time or recreational screen time? And we put together or like TV, gadgets, everything together. We want to see, is it like, if it's educational, or what we'll have in this case. If it's like recreational, what we will have in this case. If it's like monitor, what we'll have in this case. If it's like, I don't know, smartphone, what will be. But we have positive correlations, strong correlations between screen times more than strong, like positive correlation more than 3 hours and insufficient sleep.
And another question from Dr. Danielle Mead from the Department of Child and Adolescent Development. What services are available for children with special needs?
Actually, we have 100% inclusive school education. Also, we have like special centers for example, ASD kids, and by the new law of preschool, as I mentioned, we have also like in coming like 10 years we'll have, or not 10, sorry, I think in 5 years we'll have 100% inclusive preschool education.
Are there supports for the teachers on how to work with?
Yeah. We have like special like social workers and developmental psychologists and in staff of like schools and preschools. And we have specialties in pedagogical university, in state university.
All right. Any other questions from for Dr. Mkrtchyan? Mkrtchyan, sorry.
It's okay.
You had the wrong name.
It's okay. Mkrtchyan is easier than Mkrtchyan.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you, Dr. Mkrtchyan. It was a pleasure to have you. Very insightful. As we noted, a lot of the issues that you see in Armenia, we also have in different forms here as well in the United States. It was very interesting for us to see those gender differences and how that's been evolving, especially over a timeline.
Yeah.
And we also see the different issues and difficult issues we see with adolescents and their risk-taking behaviors, as well as the mental health issues that come across. I know growing up as an Armenian child and here in the United States, mental health issues tend to be things that we don't talk about too much, or
Yeah.
we're growing out of a generation from the genocide where we had great-grandparents who didn't even speak about the trauma that they went through, and that's socialized into the way we try to deal with mental health issues. So it's very important to see the perspective that you bring that's coming out of Armenia.
Yeah, and as you can see, so I didn't touch some issues, for example, in gender, and somehow we didn't touch. We still have some taboo like issues, like LGBT issue. It's really taboo, and you can go to school and ask directly to children about, like, I don't know, the gender, like. It's taboo topic, unfortunately, and we have no the real picture of prevalence of LGBT among like students and about and no, I have just few cases of like coming outs, especially among during school years. Unfortunately. And thank you for invitation. You see that we are interested in many topics and issues, and we are open for cooperation and like further cooperation. I don't know, joint projects and somehow. Feel free to contact me anytime that you have questions. Don't hesitate to ask me questions. I'm here. I think, I don't know. And as soon as I go back, we are planning to start our like preschool education and school readiness investigation, and then we go back to high schools, because we have results from like 10th grades, and we want to continue with them in 12th grade to see the differences.
Thank you. Dr.
Thank
Slasser?
you so much, Dr. Mkrtchyan. Sorry. There are a lot of thank yous also in the chat box. I just wanted to bring your attention to that, because as we had talked about before, it does seem kind of unidirectional when you're on a webinar, but we have some participation from the attendees here that I'd like to draw your attention to. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I do hope that we can reschedule a visit in the future so we can finally get you to California. But absolutely, and I second everything that everybody has said. Very insightful and thought-provoking. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and hope, yeah.
Oh, Heather, sorry.
Yeah, and I hope that we can find some like common interest to continue our cooperation and I don't know, collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what, I'll go ahead and say to all of our attendees, should we have interest in connecting, you can go ahead and shoot me an email and I'll go ahead and make that connection too.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye-bye.